Welcome to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection video tutorial series on EPA Method 334.0, Expectations for Public Water Systems in Pennsylvania. In this series of videos, we will explore the various aspects of EPA Method 334.0, with a focus on what water systems in Pennsylvania need to know in order to become compliant with this method. In this introductory video, we will be covering the following topics. We will begin with an overview of EPA Method 334.0. We will then look at the applicability of Method 334.0. Who needs to be following this method? Then we will cover why it is important to follow Method 334.0. And finally, we will end this video with documentation. Let's begin by discussing what is EPA Method 334.0. The full title is Determination of Residual Chlorine in Drinking Water Using an Online Chlorine Analyzer. It was published in 2009 by EPA. Straight from the method, the scope and application of the method is as follows. The method allows the use of any type of online chlorine analyzer for compliance monitoring when used in conjunction with a grab sample reference method that is approved for drinking water compliance monitoring. But what does that really mean? Method 334.0 is a quality control protocol for chlorine analyzers that are used to collect regulatory data. This means that both handheld or benchtop analyzers and online analyzers should follow this protocol for proper quality control in order to ensure the validity of any chlorine residual data that is collected for compliance purposes. The method relies on the use of aqueous calibration check standards to verify the accuracy of grab sample methods using handheld and benchtop analyzers. It also relies on comparative grab sample analysis between the verified handheld or benchtop analyzers and online analyzers to determine the accuracy of the online instruments. At this point, you may be wondering whether you need to follow Method 334.0. How do you know if Method 334.0 applies to your water system? Let's look at the applicability of the method. Method 334.0 is applicable to any analyzer that is used for compliance monitoring. This includes analyzers used for entry point and distribution system monitoring. Both groundwater and surface water systems have requirements for minimum chlorine at the entry point. For distribution monitoring, it's required for those analyzers used to collect chlorine residuals with total coliform samples, currently collected for monthly compliance at the maximum residual disinfectant level. It will also be required for analyzers used for compliance with the disinfection requirements rule. Method 334.0 also applies to analyzers used to obtain results for calculating login activation. Finally, it includes analyzers used to conduct chlorine monitoring required by any permit special conditions. Method 334.0 is required for grab monitoring using handheld or benchtop analyzers, continuous online monitoring, including both amperometric and colorimetric analyzers, and it applies to chlorine residual monitoring of both free and total chlorine residuals. So to put it simply, if you are wondering whether Method 334.0 applies to your analyzer, the answer is most likely yes. It is important to note that Method 334.0 does not replace regulatory monitoring and reporting requirements, and it does not ensure regulatory compliance. But following Method 334.0 does help to verify that the compliance monitoring that is conducted for regulatory purposes is valid. Any compliance monitoring previously mentioned, entry point, distribution, CTs, or special permit condition monitoring, still needs to be conducted and reported as required. Compliance monitoring results need to demonstrate that water systems are maintaining residuals according to Chapter 109 and permit requirements. Now that you know what Method 334.0 is, Let's look at why it is required. Section 109.304C of the Chapter 109 Safe Drinking Water Regulations lists several parameters known as Accreditation by Rule or ABR parameters. Accreditation by Rule parameters do not need to be analyzed by an accredited lab, but they must be analyzed by a certified operator, a person operating under a standard operating procedure from a certified operator, or an environmental laboratory. And as specified in 109.304A, these ABR parameters must be analyzed using approved analytical techniques. (109.304C) lists the parameters shown here as the ABR parameters. You can see that residual disinfectant concentration is one of the ABR parameters. This means that chlorine must be analyzed by an appropriate individual and using an approved method. That is where EPA Method 334.0 comes in. Let's look at why it is so important to follow Method 334.0. Public water systems and DEP use chlorine residual data for compliance determinations. Groundwater systems are required to maintain a minimum residual at the entry point to comply with the groundwater rule. Surface water systems are also required to maintain a minimum entry point residual. Plus, surface water systems need to monitor the end of each disinfection segment to calculate Giardia log inactivation. All systems that use a chemical disinfectant need to monitor disinfectant residual in the distribution in order to show that they are maintaining the residual throughout the system. In addition to maintaining compliance with regulatory requirements, maintaining disinfectant residual is critical for ensuring public health protection and customer confidence. Since chlorine residual data is used for such a variety of purposes, it is imperative that the data water systems collect, report, and use for process control decisions is valid and reliable data, and the way to ensure the validity of data is to follow a rigorous quality control program. Here are some resources available for Method 334.0. The first one is the actual method, which can be found on the National Service Center for Environmental Publications website, EPA's online document repository. If you go to this link and search for this document number, you'll find the method. Next are the 6 Method 334.0 DEP forms, which are intended for DEP staff and water suppliers to properly document the various requirements of the method. All 6 of the forms are available on eLibrary under Safe Drinking Water Forms. Please note these links are available in the video description below. Here is a list of the 6 DEP forms available. There is one for the Analyst Initial Demonstration of Capability, or IDC, one for the Initial Calibration Verification, one for Routine Quarterly Calibration Verifications, one for Secondary Standard Verifications, one for Comparative Grab Sample Analysis, and one for the Instrument IDC for online analyzers. The 3 forms shown in blue are for use with the grab sample methods, while those in green are for online analyzers. And the purple one is also for the grab method and is highly recommended but not required by Method 334.0. Each of these forms will be discussed in detail in the appropriate training videos. In summary, let's review the key points from this video. Disinfectant residual concentration is an accreditation by rule parameter and must be analyzed following an approved method. Method 334.0 is the EPA-approved method for online analyzers and should also be used to verify proper calibration of handheld analyzers. Method 334.0 does not replace regulatory monitoring and reporting requirements. Record keeping is important to document compliance with Method 334.0. Thank you for your interest in learning about Method 334.0. In the next video in this series, we will review QA/QC and analytical technique for grab chlorine residual analysis.